Welcome to part 3 of the Coming Out Fallout. You might be lost if you don't look at the other 2 videos. How I came out, well, my mother told me I was gay. That was the first installment. Second installment is how I got into trouble. The dictionary lesson I gave my brother a couple years later. So this is the third installment. So, as punishment for the dictionary lesson that I gave my brother, I was told that I had to, for a solid 2 weeks, I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks, it was a week. For a solid week, my brother had to be attached to my hip. As his older sister, I thought he was annoying. He was 6. He got on my nerves on a regular basis. So, to have him with me 24/7, yeah, that was punishment. So, that was a fitting punishment for me. I had to drop him off to school. I had to make sure that any errands I ran, he had to be with me. He had to sleep in my room. 24/7, this boy had to be attached to my hip. So, being the glutton for punishment that I was, apparently, I figured, all right, he's got to be with me. We're going to make this fun. So, my mother gave me an errand one day. And while she was gone, what I had to do, at this point, she was working. So, I had to do an errand. I had to go downtown where we lived. I had to go downtown. And what happened was, really, bro? You see this, right? That's Thor. Well, we had to, okay. Before I was so rudely interrupted, so I had to run downtown to the bank for my mother. And so, since my brother had to be with me, I figured, make sure he's dressed appropriately. So, I put him in a dress and matching, the bobby socks, the socks that have the little lace around, the little ankle socks. I put those on him and one of my mother's wigs and marched him downtown. Before I got back home, y'all, that phone in that house was ringing off the hook. And I knew it was my mother. I knew it. Somebody, because this is the 70s, and where I grew up, everybody's mama, everybody's grandmama checked on you. They watched your every move. And they saw me with my brother. And they saw how he was dressed and told my mother. So the phone was ringing off the hook. So I got home, answered the phone. You better be home when I get there. Click. Oh, God. So, instead of it just being a week, I now had to have this boy with me for a month. An entire month. 24/7. So, fast forward years. I mean, years later. My brother is now out of the Army. And he's applying for a state trooper job in another state. And in the application process, you have to take a lie detector test. So one of the questions in the lie detector test got him. So he calls me and he tells me that he had to go through this process and the application and the lie detector test. And I'm like, all right, so what happened? Did you get it? He said, well, one of the questions in the lie detector test was, have you ever worn women's clothing? I started screaming, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea this was going to happen. I'm begging, I'm pleading. I'm like, I'm so sorry. So he had to say yes. And he then, after the test, explained to the test examiner what had happened when we were younger. And so when he went for his final interview, he his commanding, the man who ended up being his commanding officer, of course, he got the results from the lie detector test. And so he said, so, color was the dress. So my brother expected, yeah, he had to know the results. No problem. They had a good laugh, left it alone. So he got the job. He's at his first day on the job. You know, they have that roll call, and they were partnering him up with a training officer. And so, you know, they're calling out names, present, here, you're with this truck, you're with this vehicle, no problem. So they get to my brother, and they call his name. And he raises his hand. And they said, well, before we get you to your training officer, we have to ask you a question. We need to know this. So he said, go ahead, what's the question? What color was the dress? The whole squad room fell out. The story got around. I'm screaming on the phone, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. We were kids. You were annoying. You have to admit you were annoying. I was the older sister. I wasn't in the mood to be bothered with you. I'm sorry. Someone in the back of the squad room yelled out, it was yellow. It was. I'll never live that down. He'll never let me live that down.